Well, here's the tricky thing about this. If you're listening to this right now, it's very, very, very likely that you intended to be this beacon of light for others. You just don't know it yet.
Awesome. Any questions before we dive in?
Nope.
Cool. All right. Well, we're recording. So with that said, hey, everyone, Andrew here, otherwise known as that guy who wrote the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read. And I'm super pumped for today's feature interview. There's no way I'm ever going to do it justice. I'll make this one quick. But Gary Temple Bodley is the founder of the teachingsofjoshua.com, which we'll talk about what that means. And he's the host of the Law of Attraction Roundtable, an awesome podcast, which I was lucky enough to be a part of. And it was really a unique interview experience because, I mean, all of them are supposed to be conversational, but this one was the most conversational. But I don't want to hold things up or waste any time on intros. Let's get into the meat of this and the awesome guest. So Gary Temple Bodley, thank you so much for being here and welcome to my YouTube channel.
Thanks, Andrew. It's awesome to be here.
Yeah, it's like I've got all this excitement because if only people knew who you are and what you did and how exciting and fun it is, they would be like, okay, let's dive in. So I guess that's a good thing. Like Teachings of Joshua. Let's get to that part because that'll clear up a lot of things.
Okay. Well,
or what is Joshua? Or you had a
let's. It's funny because I was living in that normal American lifestyle. I had businesses. I got the car and the boat and the house and the money in the bank and all that stuff and was never satisfied. And I was like using that success or that business to fill up this empty hole that I needed. I needed other people to see me as good and to appreciate me and to accept me, right? And so I felt unworthy of their acceptance, which I think we all do. I mean, everyone is experiencing unworthiness at some level or some kind of issues in their life that they say it's just not working, right? And so I would keep going and going and going. And, in my 20s, I was pretty successful and lost everything. And then in my 40s was very successful. And in 2008, lost everything. So I had to start over. And I came to this conclusion that what I was trying to do in the past wasn't working. And coincidentally, which we know law of attraction is not coincidence, someone gave me the secret. And I got really into the secret. My wife and I, Lily, at the time, were totally into it. And then we had listened to it over and over. And then we're looking for something else. And she finds in our library, Asking is Given by Abraham Hicks. Okay. So Esther Hicks is a channel. And she channels these group of teachers called Abraham. And I thought that was sort of weird, but I listened to it and it's like, my God, this makes so much sense to me. So this is really where I got interested in the law of attraction. And, we're trying to get back on our feet. And what I heard Abraham say is just follow your passions and be easy with everything and let things flow, right? And to focus on the good stuff in your life and start appreciating things. And that's what I did. And we booked a trip to Asheville to see Abraham in action at a workshop. And at that workshop, I found my passion again for renovating houses. And my wife found her passion for redesigning furniture. And it was like, everything started clicking. And so this whole new way of life, just being an allower, accepting what's coming and not having to effort and struggle your way through everything, it made so much sense. And I just started really having a good time. I also found a passion for playing poker and had so much fun playing poker semi-professionally, and everything was working. So then I have this huge inspiration to start meditating. And meditation to me was always something woo-woo and weird. And then Jerry Seinfeld was on TV talking about meditation, and Howard Stern meditates. And so I said, I got to try this. So I start meditating, and it was very difficult at first, but after consistently doing it for a couple of weeks, I started to feel a presence in my head when I was meditating. And it was very obvious. It felt like a hand underneath my jawbone or skin. And it was, sort of massaging there. And it was like this tingly feeling. And it kept coming every time I meditated, it would move around the right side of my head. It was very weird, but I started asking it these questions, which is why would I ask this thing these questions? And so I get these answers back, and they were like really profound, but I think I'm making it up the whole time. And then one day I said, "Who is this?" And they said, "We are Joshua." I'm like, whatever, is this real or is it not real? And so I just kept playing with it, asking questions. It was really interesting. And then literally, look at this, 7 years ago, yesterday, while meditating, they said, get up and go right. So I get up, go to my office in my house, and just start typing. And I typed 3 pages in about 30 minutes. And it was the introduction to the first book, which is called A Perception of Reality. And then I came back every day, typed again every day. And within 8 weeks, that 300-page book was done. And the next day, another book started, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So like, it just all took off from there. So that's what it is. I channel a group of non-physical entities known as Joshua. And since then, it's been 5 books, 2 podcasts, events all over the world, hundreds or thousands of people joining this community, following along. It's all this stuff has happened in 7 years because I just started following this inspiration. This is where it led me.
Right. Now, it's so interesting because I'm almost hesitant to ask this question because you've already given the answer that's required in that you're following your intuition, you're following your knowing, you're following what feels good. But I know that if I'm in your situation and have a presence in my head, which I would welcome, I'm not going to say no to it, but I would ask, and I'm wondering if you asked, why me? Why are you talking to me?
Okay, so I didn't ask that in the beginning. Now, if you would have met me 7 years ago, I was a different guy, not spiritual at all. I followed along law of attraction and Abraham, but also Tony Robbins and things like that. Normal, super normal guy. Other people can be spiritual and woo-woo, but not me. I'm just this normal guy. So, I didn't believe it. I swear to God, I didn't believe it 2 books in, 3 books in, 4 books in, podcasts in, events in. I didn't believe any of this stuff, right? I had this serious doubt. It can't be me. It can't be me. It can't be me. And then 2 years ago, November 2018, inspiration to start channeling a course, which is called the Unlimited Abundance Bootcamp. And that just came out. And it's a 400-page course that came out in 21 days, right? This huge thing and just pouring it in. And while it's coming out, I'm taking this course, and at the end of the course, it reveals your soul's purpose. And my soul's purpose was to be a spiritual leader and teacher. And this is really who I am. I didn't recognize that at all in my life because I was trying to be this normal guy. But if I look back, I was giving seminars and teaching people how to do real estate and, always, working with my employees and always teaching, interested in personal growth and development and all that. And it turns out I'm a spiritual leader and teacher. And once I realized that and stepped into it, everything in my life clicked. I mean, it really, like everything started lining up. And the most amazing experiences I've had in the last 2 years. The last 2 years seem like 20 years worth of experiences that I've gone through. And why me? Because I'm intended it maybe, and I'm ready for it. And this is what I'm interested in. But what I found in doing this is that channeling is a natural, not only natural, but a fundamental part of being human. Everyone can do it, just like everyone can sing. Some people are naturally fantastic singers. Some people need to learn to sing, but everyone can sing if they want to, right? And so for me, it was part of who I am. And what all these teachings are leading all of us to is that all of our power and wisdom is within ourselves. And when we can connect to that, we become this blended being where the thoughts we're thinking are now coming from our inner selves, our higher selves. I don't think it's higher, it's inner self, right? When we're not in fear, that's the communication. So like this conversation we're having right now, I'm receiving thoughts to say to you. Where are those thoughts coming from? Well, if you sort of think about it this way, you and I are built this link in this call, not just on Zoom, but a link that you're connected to your inner self's connected to my inner self, and they're feeding me and you words to say, because this conversation is going to reach other people and have this greater, broader impact. And so essentially, we're channeling right now. We're receiving thoughts and we're saying those thoughts. And if we take the fear out of this, like, what do you think about me, or is there an outcome I want to achieve in this conversation? If you remove all that, then you just flow like you're in a zone, and the words come easily, and there's no ums or buts or long pauses.
I love it. It's so funny because even as you were giving that answer, in my head, I'm thinking to ask Gary, well, does that mean like we're all channeling on some level right now? And then you answered it for me. And that's very interesting. And I hear that, and all of a sudden I'm making distinctions because people hear channel and they're automatically associating a very specific version of channeling where there's a specific, separate's the wrong word because we're all connected, but it's a separate consciousness feeding the thoughts, speaking through you. Whereas it sounds to me like we're all channeling on different levels and in different ways. And as soon as we accept that, I would imagine not only are we going to be channeling in a more prolific and productive and just positive way, but brand new insights and brand new opportunities and brand new things are suddenly going to become available to us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really, when we start to think of ourselves as limitless, because that's what we are, when we're not tied to fear. And in this, 2020, sure, there's coronavirus and there's financial problems and there's the turmoil in elections and stuff, and there's things to fear. But compared to 100 years ago, we are not fear of survival or starvation or, war on a global scale. Well, we have the ability now to really move beyond petty fear or irrational fear and connect to the wiser, broader part of ourselves that has this knowledge that comes through an intuition and inspiration. We connect to that stuff and push past the fear. Like, having this conversation with you. Okay, we have to connect and we have to get on Zoom and we have to set up a time for it. And then we'll have to, hopefully the conversation will be nice and people will like it and all that stuff. Well, I could just be laying in bed, right? And opt out of this whole thing. I would do that because I'd be in some sort of fear, even though the fear is minor. But I push past that fear and we have this conversation. And then once it's done, we have the thrill of having created this new thing and brought it into reality, right? And that's what it is. Pushing past these irrational fears, these mundane, every little fears. And the biggest fear is, I can do it tomorrow, right? We push past that fear, we do it now, and that's how we get everything we truly want.
Oh, I love this. So this conversation. Now I'm going to, I guess, play devil's advocate and probably ask an annoying question. I say that because I think that if I had your path and someone asked me, I'd be like, come, just do it already. But for those people that have decided that they just don't like meditation, because I know Esther Hicks' story and I know Abraham and I know this now, and it seems to me that at least the most popular or most well-known way of accessing a higher, group of beings has been through meditation. If people just don't want to meditate, but they do want to channel, is there anything coming to you right now that you would say to them that would still might invite that possibility?
Sure. So first of all of us are on a spiritual path. That's why we're here. This is a path of understanding who we are. We have these weird thoughts going on in our heads. We identify with these thoughts. We think that these are our thoughts. We think we manufacture thoughts in our brain. Actually, we attract thoughts. So you're either attracting thoughts based in, fear and control and lack and limitation, which is what Joshua calls this one stream of consciousness that's based in fear, right? Or we're feeling good and like we are right now, and we're hooked up to the stream of consciousness based in love. And this is coming from your inner self, source, whatever you want to say, God, whatever it is. So there's a source of consciousness based in love or a source of consciousness based in fear, and you're either hooked up in one or the other. But if you don't know how to use your thought process and how to discern between the two, you're sort of fluctuating back and forth and you have no real power over it. And it would be like, okay, you want to go play baseball? All right, you're going to have to go to practice. You're going to have to go to batting practice. You're going to have to, run the bases and learn how to catch. We're not going to put you out and second base if you've never practiced. And if you don't want to practice meditation, it's simply your ego saying, no, this is stupid. Said it to me too. No, you should be, what a wasted time this is. But if you want to do anything, everything that you truly want starts with meditation. And it doesn't have to be hard. We have a whole bunch of meditations. They're all free. You can get them on Spotify or Insight Timer or Amazon Music. Just search Gary Temple Bodley and you'll see them there. They're 15 minutes long. They're guided. All you do is you close your eyes and listen. And pretty soon it works for you. You don't have to do anything. There's no effort in this. You just close your eyes, listen to it, and then you think about the thoughts that are coming through. And what happens is you separate yourself, who you truly are, from the just massive amounts of just junk mail that's streaming through your head. And then you start to switch that shit off. Yeah. And then you say, nope, that's just bullshit. That's just junk mail. I don't need that. That's not for me. That has nothing to do with me. I'm going back into this stream of consciousness based in love. And that's where all the insight is and all the inspiration and all the intuition is.
I love this. I love it. Well, what's really cool, I mean, what I get from that answer is, whether you get, having an Abraham experience or a Joshua experience, just the fact of meditation, there's a power in there where the benefit is already built in, regardless of what direction that benefit goes in, what road you go down. Because like you said, we're all spiritual, we're all on a path. And, there isn't something about something being better and something being worse. We might be on a different thing anyway, but by that same token, it sounds to me like this really is accessible to everybody, and the people that were really a good spiritual fit for it are just going to do it and they're just going to enjoy it.
Yeah. And it takes, nobody likes it in the beginning. It's like, when you're a kid eating vegetables, no one likes them in the beginning. No one likes sushi right off the bat, or even beer, Mm-hmm. You're going to acquire a taste for it. But once you do, then it's like this activity that will lead to a benefit. The funny thing is that we will go and work for 8 hours a day, and we'll watch TV at night, and we'll sleep 8 hours, and we'll go out to dinner and spend an hour going to dinner or cooking or whatever it is. But none of us really spend 15 minutes or half an hour every day on our mental health or our spiritual growth. So just a quick thing that you can do is 15 minutes of meditation and then 15 minutes of writing affirmations or things you appreciate or things you're grateful for, and then setting your intentions for the day. I intend to have fun today. I intend to be, hooked into the flow of life today. And I intend to, be gracious towards other people, things like that, right? Or intend to be productive or powerful, whatever it is. Just that half an hour a day in the morning sets yourself up. And this is what creates, a vibration that attracts what you want. Mm-hmm. So you're either in a vibration of fear and control, right? Thinking things are wrong, things are bad. I wish things were different than they are. I wish, my husband or wife was different than they are. I wish I was different than I am. I wish things were different, right? Focusing on the minutia that seems to be wrong. And in that, you're going to receive thoughts that agree with you, that this is wrong. You're right. This sucks. This is terrible. Or you can say, no, everything's right as it is. I'm moving towards what I prefer. And to do that, I'm going to elevate my vibration to see everything is right. Everything's right now. Everything's right now. I prefer moving towards this direction, but everything's right now. And it's a state of acceptance that vibrates with love. And when you vibrate at that high level, then you attract other experiences and people and opportunities that are based in that level.
I love that. As I'm hearing you say this, I guess I might be channeling, because a thought that came to me to share was, for people listening, not to be too hard-nosed about the whole thing, but you either want it or you don't. And I mean that in the sense that no one's asking you to step into a UFC cage and get beat up. No one's asking you to get abused by someone or get yelled at by someone, whether it's emotional or physical or whatever like that. Like, the only thing you're doing here is you're sitting and you're relaxing and you're breathing and you're taking it in. In one sense, it requires dedication, but in the grand scheme, this is not hard the way other things in life are hard. This is an opportunity to enjoy yourself in these moments and open up more opportunities for that.
It is hard though, because if you really, really want something, you're going to push past all kinds of fear to get it. But if you don't know really what the outcomes, what the benefits are, like how do you really know what the benefit of spending 15 minutes every day meditating? You don't really know what that is.
Good point.
So your ego is saying, this is a waste of time. The whole time you're meditating, 15 minutes, your ego is going to say, what are you doing? You're silly. This is ridiculous. Get out, go to work. You know, you don't have time for this. That's hard to sit there quietly while your ego is just rapid firing these thoughts of doubt. And so we want to leave because that's uncomfortable. But the beautiful thing about meditation is that when you do something and the ego sees that you didn't die while doing it, the ego lightens up and says, okay, fine, we can meditate. And then meditation gets to be enjoyable, very enjoyable after a while.
I love it. Oh, I love this conversation. And it's so interesting because, you know, there's so many parallels that we have. So I hear you say something like, whoa, Gary just said something in a different way. It's the same thing. And I love that, the harmony and the synchronicity in that. And obviously, I mean, I hope people who are watching this right now are getting really excited because you've really just this part. We're not even done with our interview here. You've basically given a very important blueprint. In many ways, a complete blueprint for them to start off with, especially since they've got the free meditations they can go to that you've got available.
Yes.
Now, with that in mind, seeing as we've accomplished a lot so much already, just because, again, I'm inspired to keep moving this conversation in different directions and honestly milk whatever insights I can out of you. When you are channeling Joshua, is it a thing where you're asleep at the wheel? Are you conscious of everything? Like, what's your experience when that's happening?
Well, you know, I don't know what other people are like, but for me, it's an absolute battle, right? Okay. So I'm I've always been a control freak. I've had businesses, I've had employees. It's my way or the highway, right? I think I know what I'm doing. And when I'm channeling, I have to have absolute faith that what they're saying will be of benefit. And sometimes they start talking in this one direction that leads to something completely different than where I think it's going. But I want to know where it's going so I don't sound like an idiot, you know? And it's like this whole thing is like, all right, I just focus and relax and let it go and let the words fly and just let it come, but I'm 100% present, turn it off at any time. You know, I could answer the phone, talk to someone, put it back on, go right back into it.
Got it.
At the beginning, it wasn't that way. I had to have, you know, complete quiet and no one could bother me and no one definitely couldn't watch me because I was typing back then, not talking. And then 7 years later, it's just easy come, easy go. Yeah. But it is, I'm sweating at the end of it. I can only go an hour because it's exhausting. Yeah.
Got it. Now, hearing that you say this and knowing that you're not asleep at the wheel, and hoping you were going to say that, I'm curious because here you are as in a unique perspective compared to other people in terms of being an observer and observing things. You have a lot of people come to speak to Joshua and they come with problems and Joshua comes with, you know, answers. What are the main things? I mean, we probably know what the main things are, but just to hear it, you know, out of the horse's mouth, what are the main things that most people really seem to have a problem with? And what does Joshua, if it's true, like if there's a general or typical response, like how does Joshua try to address that for them?
Okay, so this is such a high level, and no one's going to get this. And I've gone 7 years, and I finally get it. Okay, so in the first book, which is called A Perception of Reality, and the very first words that I ever typed that morning 7 years ago, in the introduction, the words are, hold on, let me get it right here. Okay. The words are, everything is right. That's the first word, right? Now, in that words, everything is right, that's the beginning and the end of the teachings of Joshua. So the first word is there, everything is right. The second is, there is no wrong anywhere in the universe. Okay. If you're on a journey to self-discovery, the thing that you're going to discover at the end of this journey is that you are perfect and that you've never been imperfect, ever. It's always been this illusion of imperfection that's been driving you forward on this journey of self-discovery, going, I've got to figure this out. This isn't working. This isn't working. This isn't working. Wanting to change yourself, wanting to change yourself, wanting to change everyone else, wanting to control everything, right? Control, control, control. Okay. If you get to this point of awakening, which is awakening is that you are perfect. And that in that perfection, what you really are is love, because love is perfect. And so love is on this one side of the spectrum and fear is on the other side. And we're all in fear to some extent, and we're all moving towards love. The beginning and the end of it is to hear the concept, the words, the sentence, everything is right, and absolutely disagree with that word. And then go along a journey to prove that that statement is right. It is right. It is right. Oh my God, it is right. Okay, now I see how that was right. Now I see how that car accident was right, or that breakup with that girl in high school was right, or that losing that job was right. I see it now as you go along, right? And then you go, oh my God, if that stuff back then was right, and that everything is right in this moment, then everything in the future is right. Because what that's saying is the law of attraction doesn't make any mistakes. Everything that comes to you is for you to go on this journey of self-discovery. If the thing that comes to you is cancer, that's to help you awaken to who you really are, right? So people get cancer, and I have a friend who's a very famous oncologist. And she says, when someone comes into my office, I know within 15 minutes if they're going to live or die.
Wow.
If they come in and say, I am absolutely going to change every aspect of my life. I'm going to love and appreciate this life I have, my family, who I am. I'm quitting my job. I'm quitting everything. I'm going to dedicate myself to life. Those people will live. And the chemo will keep them alive long enough where they can pretty much heal themselves. Okay. But if they say, it's the chemicals, or it's the, it's the smoking, or it's the pollution, or whatever it is that caused me to be a victim and get this disease, there's no hope for those people. Right? So it's this whole thing where you are, we're all basically living as victims. We say to our mates, if you were nicer to me, then I would love you, right? But you're not nice to me, so I can't love you. Or, if the government was better, I wouldn't have to pay these taxes, or wouldn't have to deal with this thing. Or they're saying that something outside of them makes them feel something. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's having this victim role. Who you truly are is the creator of all this. So you have to know, if your spouse says something to you and you take offense to it, you've got a limiting belief there, right? The limiting belief is causing you to perceive that as an insult, not the words itself. And you know this, you've said stuff to people and they get offended. You didn't mean anything by it, and they get offended. Well, it's the limiting belief that's been triggered by something you said. Mm-hmm. So we say, don't pay attention to what's happening outside of you, pay attention to how you feel and what's causing you to feel that. It's always a limiting belief. Yeah. And those limiting beliefs are always false. So that's the work that you do to eventually discover that everything is right. And it's an interesting thing, because you have to come to that statement, everything is right, and not believe it. And then when you realize who you are, that's your primary belief. Is everything is right, was right, is going to be right.
So as I'm hearing your answer now, I don't know if we call it downloads, uploads, whatever, and I'm throwing my own vocabulary in here, but it seems like we've got victims and we've got champions. I'm throwing champion in there.
Sure.
I imagine there are victims out there who are just, very stubborn in their ways. And there are also victims that they kind of know it and they want their way out of it. Like they realize they're stuck in patterns of thought, but they want to take the pathway towards being a champion. What would you say to those people who are willing to receive advice or insight that they know they're in that victim mentality? They know if they go in the doctor's office, they're going to be the ones that he's like, How would you suggest they turn things around and point towards the direction of being a champion instead?
It takes courage, because when you are in that victim mode, you get to blame things outside of you for the way they are. To be a champion, you have to say, I created all this. I've always created it. I take full responsibility for every aspect of my life. If I'm driving a beater car, that's my responsibility. It's not because I didn't get educated or I had a bad family or whatever it was, right? If I got fired from my job, it wasn't because they thought, they thought that I was going to take over something and they got scared, so they fired me, right? You're never a victim to anything. Everything that happens to you is so that you can learn that you actually always have been the champion, but you have to take responsibility.
Yes.
And that's hard. I mean, it's much easier to live saying, well, things would have been better if, instead of saying, no, I have full agency over everything in my life. Now, here's the insight that you have to have. That if your life is not magnificent beyond imagination, it's because you're living for you. You are trying to make things better for you. You are trying to get people to like you, love you, and respect you. You're trying to make money for you so that you can spend it on yourself. You're trying to, control everything to prove that you're good. You're living for yourself. Okay. Now, it sounds cliche as shit, but that's never going to work. You have to pour yourself into everything, lean into everything for the service of either your family or other people or something bigger than you. Because if you're living for yourself, you're filling an empty hole that can never be filled because you're complete already. So it's like having a full glass of water and just pouring water into it and wishing it would get more full. Well, it's already full, right? The illusion is that it's not full. It's already full. You're already complete. You're already perfect. You can't make yourself feel better by achieving things or having people like, love, or respect you. That is never going to work. You have to turn your attention outside of you. And then you have to really engage. Now, this hard thing is to really engage means you've got to open yourself up to rejection, which means you'll have to become vulnerable to rejection. Now, the rejection also is an illusion because nobody knows who you truly are. You don't even know who you are. This is a journey of self-discovery. You haven't discovered who you are yet, right? You're on that journey. And the only way to discover that is to be vulnerable and open yourself up to rejection. I'm going to give 150%. And if they still think I'm an asshole, well, that's going to really hurt, but I'll learn something from that, But the thing is, they won't. If you give 150%, people are going to resonate with you. And the law of attraction is going to come behind you and give you everything you need. And that's what the law of attraction is. The law of attraction really is the same definition as abundance. Abundance is receiving everything you need to do whatever you need to do when you need to do it. If you don't need to do anything, you're not going to get anything, right? So you have to put yourself out there first and have faith that the law of attraction will bring you everything you need to do this difficult thing that you've committed to.
It's so funny. Your answers are so deep and so thorough. I find myself having a response to the first half of it. It's like people might have forgotten that part already, but I did want to bring this up because you're talking about, being in it for yourself or versus others. And I almost remember, I wonder if we spoke about this when you interviewed me or when we were on your podcast. I almost feel like I remember saying it back then, but who knows? But it's like the most selfish thing you can be is selfless, because you want to create a better world around you. If you're a billionaire in a world where most of the people are poor, you're still losing because you want to have pizza around the corner, the pizza shop's closed. You want to go on a date with someone new and have an option, there's nothing there. You want to you don't want to be the one person but you want everyone around you to be doing well. You want everyone thriving. You want to help people. It does serve you. It's the most selfish thing you can do by being in service to others and making a better world around you. That's what I got out of the first half of your answer.
100%. I mean, 100%. And it's funny, though, it seems like such an obvious thing. You're engaging with other people at a magnanimous and selfless level. For them, obviously, they're going to respond to you, right? And if you're doing it for you, well, then you're all alone in that. And that is, you're never going to get what you think you're going to get. Now, we have this thing, though, in our society that we sort of worship famous people or celebrity or whatever it is, but those people generally have done something of such value to others that it wasn't there. And most people have gone through, like, if you think about LeBron James, he was simply being on the court at 5 years old and going to practice every single day before anyone knew who he was. And then that culmination came to, yeah, this is obviously where I should be. And then in that, he brings, inspiration to so many people of what's possible, especially coming out of a, African-American community and that sort of thing. Well, this is what all of us can do, is eventually get to this level where we are engaging so much and pushing through so much fear, being vulnerable and open to rejection, that we become this example that other people say, well, if Gary can do it, if he can push past this fear and speak publicly on a podcast like this or on a YouTube video, even though, he doesn't know what he's going to say, well, then maybe there's something there. And maybe it's not just for me, but it's for all the people around me, if I can be this beacon. Well, here's the tricky thing about this. If you're listening to this right now, it's very, very, very likely that you intended to be this beacon of light for others. You just don't know it yet. You just saying, your self is saying, well, how could I be an example? Or how could I channel or be a teacher or, do what I'm passionate about doing? I have to work 9 to 5. I got to raise a family. I got to do all this stuff. And it's like, that will be revealed to you if you go on the spiritual journey.
I love it. Wow. So many thoughts coming on as we're saying this here, and you're just giving, you're so much value here. I'm curious, you're now, we don't want to attach labels, but you're obviously a lot further along than you were 7 years ago. What to you does it feel like there is, when you're at a high level, is there a certain hurdle that you still find yourself trying to jump but having a little bit more difficulty with? In other words, I'm asking this because people might go along this path, and what might they expect as they go in higher levels, and they still might encounter some things they've got to get past?
All right, so there's two ways to approach life. You're either playing that victim role. In that victim role, you're perceiving that everything is happening to you, right? Mm-hmm. And you actually withdraw because you just don't want to engage in anything that has a potential for negative emotion. You don't want to put yourself out there. And you see this with older people. They tend to withdraw. My dad has a hard time talking to me because he's afraid I'm going to say something that will trigger one of his limiting beliefs. And they get so strong, those limiting beliefs, over time. If you don't process them, they get stronger and stronger. And you'll see older people tending to withdraw. So that is a life of really living in constant fear, constant worry, constant doubt, constant thinking that something bad is going to happen in the future. It's not a fun way to live. Mm-hmm. The other way to live is to say, I can have and do anything. I'm the creator of this reality. I'm going to act on inspiration, and I'm going to do things that people around me will not think I should be doing. And my ego will say, don't do it too, right? And you're going to say, I'm going to push past all my fear. Start this podcast, write this book, write a blog, apply for this job that's way ahead of me, whatever you're inspired to do, buy this house, all these things, right? And that is a life of receiving inspiration and pushing past fear. Mm-hmm. So we're never going to get fear out of the way. We're either going to live in fear, or we're going to have to live courageously pushing past fear, even though you don't know where it's going to lead.
Yeah.
So those are the two approaches to life. Now, the second approach is what we call the new approach, where you are simply living in a state of appreciation and alignment and love. And you're simply existing to be of service to those around you, to be of something more in whatever way you're passionate about, finding your interests and passions and saying, I'm worthy to follow these interests and passions to discover who I am. Once you discover who you are, then your purpose in life shifts from that, because until you discover who you are, your purpose is to discover who you are. Then it shifts to helping everyone else discover who they are. So my entire life is dedicated to helping you and everyone else discover who you are. And so I'm simply existing for that purpose. And in that, I get so much support from the universe. Now, that sounds super woo-woo, but my experience is that everything starts to work. Okay, if you were to met me 7 years ago, I couldn't speak like this. In fact, I couldn't really even talk for very long. I was sort of a quiet person. And over 7 years, suddenly I can speak. I'm going to be talking all day long. I have calls all day long. For 8 hours today, I'll be doing nothing but speaking all day long. I didn't think I could write. I wrote 5 books. I didn't think that I could, be interviewed on other people's podcasts or have my own podcast. All that came. As long as I said, I'm doing this not for me, but for everyone else. Now, in that idea of doing it not for me, everything that I channel, the courses, everything, it's all open source. Everyone can take it. They could take the books if they wanted to and put their name on it. They can make their own courses, and people do. They take the books and they make courses. We have people making courses in French, people teaching these kids, teaching these groups. It's all awesome. They're making a living teaching these things. It's not mine. It's for everyone else. On my podcast, I bring in other channels that I think are amazing and expose everyone to those people, right? It's for this highest good, and everything I need will come to me because that's how the law of attraction works.
Right.
Now, last week in a channeling session, Joshua brought up this analogy that I think is brilliant. Imagine that you find the genie and the lamp, and you find this magic lamp and you're rubbing the side of it and the genie pops up, right? And the genie says, I'll give you 3 wishes. Nobody ever asked the genie, what should I wish for? The genie has been doing this for eons. The genie has all this knowledge. Why not ask the genie, right? Well, that's what the law of attraction is. The law of attraction is this genie, but if you ask for it, it's based on this limited thing you think you want. Oh, I'd love to have $10,000, right? It's like, wow, that is such a small thing compared to what you could ask for. But you don't know what to ask for because you're existing at this limited state. To you, $10,000 is amazing. But if you knew who you really were, that wouldn't even cross your mind. Yeah. And so what the law of attraction is let the universe bring you everything you need. Don't try and ask for it yourself. Just let it come. And it will always be a million times more elegant than what you thought you could manifest yourself.
Wow. I love this. It's so funny. Again, long answer. And I'm like, oh, I got this point, that point, that point. To quickly speak to that, you gave the 2 versions of how you might live. And believe it or not, like my brain went to big basketball because you're using basketball as an early example. And my interpretation of this is, well, one way is, you're playing the game, and when they do a rule change, like they change a shot clock or something like that, you've been playing the game, you keep playing the game. That's my interpretation of that first one. My interpretation of your second one is, when you're playing in a complete state of love, you don't even notice a shot clock because you're already in flow. Right. And then to speak to the genie piece here, people obviously a lot of times they have to realize something you really want to acknowledge for yourself. You're in reaction mode. If bills are tight, you're asking for that $10,000 because you just want to get that done and get over the hump. Whereas what you might want to do is say, well, let me get enough to get through this. But you know what? Let me also get a brilliant idea for a book or a product or a show or video that's going to bring hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. And then I can give it to people and help other people in the same state and help myself. It's like, universe, give me something even bigger and grander. It could be a book. It could be whatever. That's what I got out of that answer that I want to impart with people.
Exactly. The inspiration will come, but a lot of times that inspiration will not lead you where you think it's going to go because it can't. So if I had seen where I would be now from that guy 7 years ago who was renovating houses and playing poker and things were going great, friends and married and lived in a nice place, if you would show me like today, this conversation, I would say, I don't want that back in that 7 years, right? because it's too weird. But as I've come along this journey, it's been the most magical and perfect experience because it never went too far. The things that came up, I could always push past that fear to do it. To be on the, I was invited early on to start a podcast. And so I started a podcast with my friends. And I knew back then no one was listening to it, right? And then I was invited to be a guest host on a law of attraction cruise, one of the speakers, right? And I had never spoken to anyone before. And this was before I was channeling verbally, right? So it was just me going on this. The other person was Pam Grout. And at the time, Pam Grout was a celebrity in the law of attraction world. She wrote the book E Squared, and that sold 5 million copies, some huge, right? And so I'm like, I'm going to be in this cruise for 7 days with Pam Grout doing these talks. And I'm like, yeah, I guess, no one's going to come to see me. I said, okay, it'll just be fun, right? So a bunch of my friends went on the cruise also. Turns out of the people that were there, 70%, there were 6 or 7 speakers, including Pam Grout. 70% came to see me.
Wow.
Now that's so weird, to think about that. And then the 2 talks that I gave were really high level, even though it was the first time I ever did it. It was just really amazing how it all worked out. But I had had to have the faith that I could push past that fear and do it. A lot of it was that I wasn't really attached to an outcome. I never really thought it was going to be a big deal or this would ever lead to anything. So now that I got here, I'm like, I don't care what happens. I have absolutely no burning desire for anything. I'm just letting the universe bring what it brings. And that approach to life, you're pretty much living for the day, in the moment, in the day. You're not worried about what's coming. You have faith that everything's working out right. Everything that you do is highly effective. Every person that comes to you is there at the right time. You have a sense of purpose, which is really fulfilling. And my life, no matter how much money I made in the past, I never had that sense of purpose, and I was never fulfilled. I was always trying for more. So as I exist now in the sense of purpose, I just go, what's going to happen today? How much fun can I have today? And just, it comes, and it's so rewarding and effortless.
I love this. So I want to make sure to honor your schedule. We're almost out of time. I guess I have 2 more questions for you. First one is, I'll put some links in the YouTube description, but what is the best way for people to, if they want to connect with you and learn more, where can they go? So the website, the easiest thing I think is to just Google Gary Temple Bodley. And there there's a documentary. The website is theteachingsofjoshua.com. You can watch the documentary. Podcasts, there's 2 podcasts. There's interviews with other people. Whatever you find when you Google that will be what comes to you, wherever you are. And this is all fun. This is all leading to a rich life that everyone wants. But it's completely different than what we thought. What we thought was we're going to get married. We're going to be married forever. We're going to have these kids who adore us, who turn out perfectly. We're going to have this job that we're going to be in forever, and it'll pay us when we retire, and everything will be great, right? But that's not how it works, because it can't work that way. The system has to work so that at some point you go along your journey of self-discovery. And if you're ignoring that, there's a fantastic woman who is in our boot camp. And she had this idyllic marriage to this fantastic guy with this fantastic kid, lived in this beautiful place in Washington, D.C., was very highly social and had all these things going on. Everything from the outside looked perfect. And then he divorced her. And she's now on her own. And it took her a long time to realize that, she was she realized she wasn't being present in that relationship. She was letting him take care of her, but she was ignoring her journey of self-discovery. She was living without any identity. And the universe had to put her on this path of self-discovery. And the path, because she was resistant to it, was difficult.
And then she figured it out that she had to be on this path, and he had to divorce her. It had to work out like this. It could have been cancer or a car accident or some other terrible thing. In this case, it was divorce. And from her perspective, that was the most terrible, because she had figured that she was set for life and she never had to do anything anymore, right? But no, if you're not on your spiritual path, something's going to happen to wake you up. So the sooner you go on that spiritual path, the quicker you'll discover how life truly works. And that's when things start to be fun. So it takes a little bit of adjustment, but when you get on that path, it's and you can attest to this, the way your life is going, everything is working, right?
Yeah.
Because you're seeking, and this is what you intended prior to your birth. This is what you intended. And then you found me, and everyone else you find is helping you go along this path to discover who you truly are.
Wow. Gary, I was going to ask, the last question would have been a final thought, but I think you just said it right there. You answered my question before I had it. I don't know if there's any more you wanted to add before we head out of here.
Well, I'll just give you a hint. Who you are is this limitless and eternal being of love. And as a being of love, you are living in a state of acceptance. And in that state of acceptance, your primary belief is everything is right. That's the highest vibration you can get to. When you get to that vibration, all you do is watch what the universe brings. And it's amazing.
Gary, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, your gifts, your experiences here. Thank you so much for just being you. And, selfishly, again, selfless, I wanted to put you in front of my audience because I knew they would get this kind of content and this kind of insight. So thanks so much for taking time out and being a featured interview on my channel. I can't begin to tell you how much I appreciate it.
This gives me total joy. You are allowing me my purpose. And so I couldn't imagine a better way to spend an hour. This was the highlight, don't you think? This is what it's all about. These sort of things without attachment to an outcome, because it'll all work out. So thank you.